All right. Well, it looks like we have a quorum. So, and we have lots of good things on the docket today. Some very good news, I think. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Rao, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, I am. I'm going to paste the link to the community debrief here. So there's the community update, 138. Yeah, we do have quite a bit of progress to report. As far as the various network environments, we have 0925.4 running on the validators on the mainnet and also on the testnet. And we have 0926 LFS beta is running on the observers on the mainnet right now. But we have 0926, the release candidate being prepared as we speak. And this really concludes the last finalized state work. We're calling this a release candidate because we want to give the community some time to test and discover anything we have not found. But for all practical purposes, this is the final release unless something is found by others. So this closes the 0926 last finalized state milestone. Nutzipper is going to write up a blog article explaining how to use this release to test the last finalized state for the community. So that concludes the 0926. And like I said, if something is discovered, obviously we'll fix that. And it's for that reason that we're calling it release candidate. But we have moved our attention now onto the next series of things that we need to do in terms of moving towards block merge. Those I'm describing here between release 0927 and release 0928 tags or characterization. Some of these things may move around depending on what we see to be on a critical path to get to block merge. So things may be moved ahead or moved back, depending on how soon we need it to get to block merge. So in that path, there are basically 3-4 different streams, at least 3. So one item we talked about a few times in the previous sessions was refactoring runtime manager. What Nutzipper has been able to do in the last couple of weeks is get all the locks removed on the runtime manager, or most of the locks removed on the runtime manager. And he's able to demonstrate that we get a clean multi-parent DAG running multiple runtimes, which was something we did not have the ability to do before. So that's kind of where we are. So the much, if not all of the refactoring we need for runtime manager is complete, at least for this version. So that's substantial progress also towards block merge. So that's kind of where we are. And I think what we will do with we had tested in the past several months ago, trying to do a par with multiple deploys in the and run that, and we demonstrated that on the runtime manager that was in its previous state. But now we're going to run the same thing on the, quote unquote, unshackled runtime manager with many more locks removed, and test and demonstrate that for deploys that are not inherently conflicting, that we're able to at least observe what the behavior and performance is going to be. So that's what we're going to do, and that we think is relatively simple. Now with the runtime manager in place, in its current state of most of the logs removed and multiple runtimes being able to be run in parallel, we are looking at the conflict rules. And there are two levels, and that I'm describing here under 0928. There are, we have to think about conflicts among deploys within a block as well as the cross-block conflicts. How do we resolve those? So we have had some discussion on that, and there was some prior design for block merge as to how to identify conflicts and resolve conflicts. So we are, there's going to be one more round this time of a more detailed discussion, design discussion. And that's going to be some of the significant implementation effort from here on for the next few weeks to get that resolved and implemented. So conflict identification and conflict resolution according to the rules. And what can we do to accelerate such conflict resolution or minimize such conflicts, knowing that certain things probably will end up conflicting or failing in the end. So all of that we're kind of working on to get that done. So that's another stream of work. And there is I put that under 0927, but it probably calls for some attention. I mean, it'll probably be delivered over multiple releases. We'll see how this goes. But this is to, so for us to deal with conflicts and being able to say, okay, what is the state of affairs? What are the conditions that are causing conflicts? Is it because the code is wrong in some sense, or is it because of the rules? To be able to identify all of that, we need a very nice, clean error logging and error reporting, and then kind of attached with that, from a performance standpoint and reliability of the network standpoint, is the monitoring infrastructure. So we are working on that as a stream of work to enable improve developer productivity, so that we can get to this conflict resolution issues quicker. So there's the error logging, debugging side of that, from a core development standpoint, as well as there is the overall network stability and resilience monitoring and the events, all of that. So we're looking at potentially doing InfluxDB as the main holder or keeper of all the events, and all the data, and then be able to slice and dice that to get at the information that we need to get at. Now, this helps the core developer team productivity, but it will also help the DApp developers substantially over time. And we're thinking maybe something like Grafana can be put as a graphical front end to InfluxDB. Now, we're using all these tools in different contexts at the moment, but we're trying to basically bring it all together in a way that a developer, core developer, or a DApp developer can quickly recognize or identify what the source of the problem seems to be. And this thing about how for new developers, this RChain infrastructure may be scary to work with because of insufficient tools, is going to be partially addressed with this one, probably substantially addressed with this one. So that's another stream of activity. that's going on. And in this activity, I would like to get as many community members involved to accelerate this, both because as a DApp developer, you kind of have a view on what makes things easier, and that perspective is helpful. But this is also the kind of thing that we don't necessarily need to take the core developers' time. This is something I think as a community we can pull together. So I'm going to ping a few people, and hopefully everybody can help with this tooling and infrastructure piece. Now, that relates to also some other API improvement activity that's been going on for the last week or two. Will has been working with Dan and Jim and others. He has put together the OpenAPI Swagger documentation, which then enables us and enables the developers DApp developers to use all the tooling and ecosystem that's available around Swagger. So that's another activity. And all these things, hopefully, will then help our hackathon, which is the next item I want to speak to, experience for total newbies to RChain, and to have a slightly better experience with it. So that's kind of the next item I want to talk about. So there's been quite a bit of community engagement, and we'll continue to have a lot of that to push towards, identifying and completing the hackathon tasks. There's a project on the, right now I think it's on the RChain community, and RChain community repo. And there are actions being taken by community members to help this along. Greg has prepared the initial set of Rolang and Scala questions, but anybody in the community that can add more to it, as well as JavaScript questions, because we have October 31st, there is a qualifying test for the hackathon, and November 7th and 8th is the actual hackathon. So we anticipate quite a few registrations. That's the reason why we want to give a qualifying test so that we can rank order and then pick the number of people that we can accommodate for the virtual hackathon. So there's a lot of work there that anybody can participate there, from kind of describing some problem statements to helping with marketing of the hackathon, identifying any communities or colleges that you know of that we can get the word out to improving the website, whether it's on the look and feel or the quality of the content, the quality of the learning links. So there's quite a bit there that needs to be done. And as we do that, basically, it makes it easy to bring on new developers as part of the developer ecosystem. And over time, it should make it much easier for all of us, especially the DApp developer community, to make progress. So there's a lot of activity going on overall on this usability and API improvements, monitoring improvements, debugging and improvements, all of that. So that's another whole track of work that's going on. And I don't want to go too long into other things here. Let's see, tech governance. The last meeting we had was on the economic model stuff, the economic network security model that I talked about. But we will be having some sessions coming up on proposals to change the POS contract and how we get that going, as well as on sharding and shard configuration. Now, one of the things with the monitoring that I wanted to also point out is that eventually Greg's vision is that we would want to get all that information on the chain. Like each chain is self-describing, not only is each shard performs, not only performs, but also records and reports what its performance has been. So that's sort of a thing, and Greg can speak to that a little bit more. But that's the vision of what we want to do there with the monitoring data. So on DApp development, there has been substantial progress on RVote, headed by Dan Conley and Jim White-Scarver, Theo and others in the community to get that. I think it's close to complete as far as my experience of that has been last time. But perhaps after Raphael's presentations, maybe Jim White-Scarver or someone can speak to that as to where RVote is at this point in time. That, I guess I want to stop there. I mean, there's other things to talk about, but I think I hit the highlights, and I want to make sure others have the time to do what they want to do. Are there any questions or comments on the things that I covered so far?
First of all, thank you very much, Ra. I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that people understand we can make progress on the work involved in the block merge and parallelization of the network without the monitoring, but the monitoring makes it a lot easier for the developers. So so those two things can proceed sort of optimistically in parallel, right? So it's not like we have to wait on block merge development we don't have to wait for the monitoring cleanup in order to continue with the block merge development. So they're not sequenced in that way. It's just as we need cleanup, we can do the cleanup in order to keep going forward. The other thing is that my vision for a very, very long time has been that the network is self-describing. So in particular, what we would like to see is with each shard, there's a corresponding logging shard. So, you know, for the root shard, there's a corresponding root logging shard. And each of the validators report their health to the logging shard. And that way you now have a on-chain record of the health of each of the validators. But it's not the self-describing data is not going back to the root shard, but to a separate logging shard. Now, of course, you have potentially infinite regress, but you just stop there. So the logging shard can also, the validators on the logging shard can also record their data in the logging shard. So because the logging shard is not intended to be high performance, it's intended to be a record of the health of the shard. Does that make sense? Do people understand what I'm driving at? Does silence mean perfect understanding or utter confusion?
No, I think it's straightforward to understand from my perspective, anyways.
Sure. I just want to check in with others and see if that if it makes sense. Yeah. Theo, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I think this is a capability that we don't see in other networks, right? So we don't see Ethereum describing itself on chain. We don't see Cardano describing itself on chain. But this is a feature that I've been anticipating in my architecture for about 10 years. So anyway, it's good that we're slowly getting to the place where we can have this kind of capability. And what this will do is it will mean that you can build a whole bunch of network monitoring tools from Chain. Right, so if you target the Chain APIs for network monitoring tools, then you can build to a uniform interface, and that means that network monitoring DApps can target a uniform API surface and provide a lot of value to the community. All right. Unless there are any other questions for Rao, why don't we turn it over to Raphael to give the demo. Any other questions for Rao before we turn it over? Okay, take it away, Raphael.
Okay, thanks. So, so my turn. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, this one. Okay. So I'm going to give an update on DAppy, on the new release that came out 2 or 3 weeks ago. No, like 1 month ago. So it's out on the regular desktop platforms as usual. So I have slides that I will just follow. So I always try to use different expressions to define the project. So DAppy is a trustworthy name system, decentralized file distribution platform, and no-DNS, no-CA web browser. So what's new since the main thing that's changed since previous release, I forgot the P, is that there are now 2 distinct networks each with a distinct name. So the first one already existed. It's the beta network, which is deployed on the RChain mainnet. And the new one is the data network, which is deployed on the RChain testnet. So now there is, it's easier to understand on which platform is a given application deployed because there is a different name for each platform. So the release number is 033. So it includes new debug tools to debug some stuff related to RChain deployment and what's on the chain. And also it includes a new DApp, which I called a tip board. And we will see in a minute what is it about. It's very much similar to the hexagons DApp that was demonstrated a month ago. So I will switch to the DAppy browser. So this is the DAppy browser. I'm on the network section. Some things have changed, and there is now this new message that gives insights to what network is currently the main network in the browser. So so now you can connect to the Delta network or the beta network, and it should be easier than before to perform the switch between beta and Delta network. So the first section I will show is the deploy and rolling section. So now it's it includes explore deploy capability. So you can write Rolang, and then you can deploy it to the network you are currently connected to. In our case, we are currently connected to the Delta network. And so this means the RChain testnet. So we can deploy, or we can choose Explore Deploy. So I'm just going to hit the Explore Deploy button, and an Explore Deploy will be sent to the network, and we will get the response back. So this could help you as a developer issuing Explore Deploy requests to a given network. In our case, we are still connected to a single node network. But the cool thing is that in the future, if you have 10 nodes that you are connected to, your Explore Deploy will be issued to the 10 nodes. So you'll be absolutely sure that that the whole network agrees on a specific value at a specific time. So you can also check deploy ID and unforgeable name, but I won't go further for this demonstration. So then the new thing is, again, in the deploy section and in the DApp tab. So there is this new DApp that you can select and that you can deploy. So it works a bit like Hexagon's DApp. It is based on the ERC 1155 standard that we are developing on RChain. And basically, so you just select it, you hit next page, and then you enter your account information, and the transaction gets signed and sent to the blockchain instantly. Then you just have to wait a few minutes, and you will have a pop-up about the DApp being available. So when it so this is the Hexagon's DApp that I showed a few months ago. So it's still available. So you can raise funds or just play with it. And then there is the tip board, which is the new one. So when you load it, it's a bit like the personal pages. So when you load it the first time, you have to configure it. So, okay, it should load. Okay. So, so you have to give it a title. This will be the title of the tab, eventually a description. And then, since it is based on ERC 1155, you don't have necessarily to rely on revs. You can choose to create, for example, 100 tokens, and each token could have a value of 1 rev, for example. So if people want to contribute to this, if people want to tip your application, they will have to do it by one by one. They won't be able to issue half of a rev, for example. So when you have set up the values, it looks something like it. So Theo and Jim, I guess you are ready to issue contributions, so you can go ahead. We will see if it displays in time. So when you have set up the values, it looks like this. So this is the main appearance of the DApp. So anyone is simply able to tip you any quantity that is available. In my example, it says that 100 tokens are available, and the price per token is 100 of a rev. So I can tip myself just to demonstrate. So when I hit the tip button, of course, the JavaScript does not sign the transaction because it does not need my private key. DAppy browser handles it. So I input my password and I send the transaction. And then basically I'll have to wait because there is a delay between the transaction being issued and the update occurring on the blockchain. So it should be real time because there is a polling going on. So it's not a subscribe mechanism. The DApp simply, let me try to find my debug. I guess it's this one. Every like 10 seconds, we issue a request to get the data from the ERC 1155 contract. So if I check the logs on the blockchain, no, this one is not displaying. I should see my transaction, and then we should see it appearing. One thing that is new and very handy also for developers is the shortcut notation. No, I'm trying to. Okay. So in the JavaScript or in the HTML, you don't have to reference the network anymore. You can simply use the DAppy protocol notation and then directly the registry URI you want to load. So this is handier for developers because if you deploy something on the Delta network and then on the Beta network, you can rely on the same JavaScript code because it does not include the name of the network anymore. So let's wait a bit. Do I have something here? Okay. Okay, so I see the transaction being validated. Nice. Purchase successful. So those are ERC 1155 logs. And then we'll just have to wait for the propagation to the read-only node, and then it should appear on the tab. Do I see some stuff? Nope. So I guess if you have questions, you can ask. So there is an article about the Delta network if you want to read about it.
This is awesome. Thank you so much, Raphael. It's always good. So I do have a question. Are you at a point where, or what is the status of open sourcing DAppy?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get hold of get hold of you, Greg, today, since since after the dev stand-up this morning. But okay, Raphael, you can answer that any which way you want to on that. And I'm also pleased to see that you have the tip board application ready for you to receive, Rav,
Yes.
from the community to enable you to open source it. But yeah, go ahead, Raphael, answer that question, and then we can take it offline later.
Yes. So my plan is to have a mini ICO for DAppy to be developed on GitHub in the future, and okay. But I have just to know if I'll give something in return for participation, and I have to know what could be this asset that people could get in exchange for participation in the mini ICO. I see it like an ICO around 100,000 revs, which is like between $2,000 and $3,000. Okay, so we just show we just saw everything pop up here, so that's nice. The contributions. So yes, so about open source. So yes, I have. It will be open source soon. I just found out a great license from the MetaMask project. They use a license that is interesting, so I think I'll use the same one. And yes, I'll. So if you have reactions to this plan of setting up a mini ICO, do not hesitate. But the goal for me is just to have some mini funding to keep the development going, because until now I got zero from all this. So that's it.
Awesome. Very good. I'm sure that the cooperative will find a way to support your incredible progress. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think this brings up a larger point in terms of accelerating open source releases in the community. And first of all, I applaud everyone that is doing that automatically at this point in time. But it is very fair to the developers to say, okay, like there is sort of do a Kickstarter of their own for each thing that they want to release. So I strongly, because the nature of the blockchain is that there is a cost to decentralization. There's a cost of freedom, so to speak, and that's why blockchain includes cost accounting in everything. I mean, you typically can't get anything on a blockchain without paying for it, right? That's part of the model, and we should sort of apply that to the dApps within reason. And so I encourage everybody to tip Raphael for his efforts so that he can open source it. And yes. Same with all the others that are putting in efforts.
Absolutely. Yeah, no worries. I think we can get you across the finish line pretty easily.
Yeah, great. And yeah. Of course, it's very logical, because browser, especially web browser and stuff like that, you have to trust it and you have to triple check it. So it's very logical that it becomes open source.
Yes,
it's like MetaMask and a regular web browser.
Yep. You are 100% correct on that point as well. One thing that I've been hoping that someone would pick up on, and it's related to some work that Theo had begun, although it's slightly different. I don't know if anyone remembers Yahoo Pipes. When Yahoo Pipes came out, I thought finally people are starting to get the whole paradigm, and lots of developers jumped on Yahoo Pipes, but I don't think it ever achieved much mainstream acclaim. But Yahoo Pipes was essentially a data flow diagram model that you could draw out a data flow diagram and thereby create models of feeds, right? So they were tackling RSS feeds and other kinds of web-based feeds, predominantly RSS, but essentially, you draw a data flow diagram model, and you attach to the nodes in the diagram either RSS sources or other web sources, or little logic snippets such as filters or choices or those kinds of things. And it would then compile that diagram to running code, and you would end up with an output that was a feed that matched your that sort of operated according to your logic. And this makes a ton of sense for, it makes even more sense today than it made in the past, where we now have so many different sources of information. You know, if you had a Yahoo Pipes like gadget that operated over your Discord and your Slack and your Facebook and your Instagram feeds, where you could, you know, weave together these different sources of data, then it would make it could potentially make one's life a lot easier. You know, it would automate a lot of what we see with these social media management sites. I'm trying to think the one based up in Canada. Nora mentioned it the other day. I can't remember. I went up there and gave a presentation to them several years ago. Gosh, what's the name of it? Nora, do you remember the name of the one of these social media aggregator sites?
Well, now that you mention it, it's impossible for me to remember.
Well, anyway, it'll come back to us.
I'll put one in the chat. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. No worries. No worries. But anyway, what would be really, it is so easy to just use rather than tie it directly to RSS feeds or other social media feeds. You can take a data flow network diagram and compile it to Rolang in a heartbeat. This is trivial. This is an afternoon's worth of coding. Now, what that doesn't do is it doesn't cover all of Rolang. Rolang is strictly larger than data flow diagrams for a number of reasons. But data flow diagrams are nonetheless quite useful and incredibly intuitive. And intriguingly, there is an open source. So when Yahoo Pipes died, the community was strong enough that they made both an open source version and a paid version. And there are 15 other alternatives out there that in various stages of completeness and with various repositories behind them. So it seems like it would be quite easy to have as a DAppy DApp one of these pipes, Yahoo Pipes like alternatives. Of course, it doesn't have to be on DAppy; it could be somewhere else. But to me that would greatly accelerate a variety of applications that we would like to see. And so if you had a pipes like tool that allowed you to do to build up these data flow diagram like things and then compile that to Rolang, I think that would really speed up a lot of user adoption for RChain and for Rolang in particular. So it's just a thought, just something. Do people know what I'm talking about when I say Yahoo Pipes or data flow diagrams? Is that landing?
I'll have to check it.
Here, I'll put some links in the here's the community project that followed on, and then let me go find some other alternatives. So here's 13 or 12 best Yahoo Pipes alternatives. And so it looks like, in particular, webhookit is probably one that is where you're not, because it looks like the tradition of pipes was built in terms of Ruby, and I am not a big fan of Ruby as a programming language. But there is I think there's a Node.js there's a Node.js version, which is webhookit, that will do the trick as well. So anyway, there's lots and lots of existing source code that could make this, like a weekend's project where you take existing source code and compile the data flow diagrams to Rolang, and then you can attach them to whatever sources, right? You could attach them to social media sources. You could attach them to what's sitting on chain. You could attach them to chain-based content. It would be a very natural framework in which to accelerate a lot of development because it's visual and people can grasp what's going on. All right. Any other questions or comments for Raphael?
Yes, I actually have a question for Raphael. So it sounds like a crowdfunding to me, but it's more like limited because when you do crowdfunding, I guess you don't have to have, you don't have to be, yeah, thank you. Is it right? Is it like a crowdfunding platform?
I think Raphael wants to just do a basic. He wants to offer a digital asset in exchange for some, yeah. So I mean, in particular, Raphael, what I would offer is it possible to purchase entire chunks of namespace? Like could I purchase mumble.frots.star, right?
I'm not sure to understand. You want to purchase many names?
Yeah. So imagine that the names are structured, right? So it's name dot name dot name dot blah blah blah, and then you have, and then you can just like with DNS, right? Right. So DNS names have components, all right, and then you'd like to be able to purchase not a single name, but all the names that are described by a pattern. So A.B.star, right? So that would be everything that begins with A.B.
Yes, I think I see what you mean. So right now, names are just one-level names. So you don't have subdomains. But of course, if you own Greg, in the future, you'll be able to have different resources bound to any subdomain you want. And of course, you can go as deep as you want, just like you can have many subdomains. So if you own the root, you own all the rest, and you control all the rest.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess purchasing roots is certainly a natural thing.
Yes, this is what we do, and yes, maybe there could be a way to sell subdomains, but I've never think about it. So, but and to answer also to the question that's been asked. So yeah, it's very close to the closest thing is Twitch website where streamers can get contributions. So it's the same kind of application, but the main difference is that no one's in control except the people, the one that has deployed this application. It's not handled or controlled by a private service. It's distributed by the DAppy network, which is a subset of the blockchain, of the RChain blockchain platform. So, so anyone can create a board and get funding for anything they want. And you can also, without even asking the owners, you can tip any any DApp or any website, because all the websites are linked to a ref address or a blockchain identity. For example, this is my personal page on the Delta network. And as a user, you can tip any amount you want. So we have, by default, a relation between content and identities. So we can do lots of stuff related to micropayments and fundraising that are very much more difficult to set up in a regular web environment because of the centralization that cannot be bypassed in some case.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. So I noticed that Nutzipper is on. Did you want to just show the diagram that you showed earlier this morning of the non-conflicting transactions running in parallel? I think that's very useful for the community to see if you're around and able to do that.
Hey, yes, give me 2 minutes.
Sure, no worries.
So
Well, go ahead.
basically, we already had, so these diagram of multiple parents, we already had that before, but we had some issues that won't let the network proceed in a stable way with such a multi-parent. I didn't see these issues for now with changes that we had. So basically, let me, where's that? I just will show you. Yeah, so this is it. Okay, let me share my screen. So can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so basically what we accomplished with these changes, recent changes, is that we can have situation like this. So basically we're looking from the genesis. This denotes 3 validators over a network. This one is empty sender, which is genesis block. So basically, I've triggered the block creation from one of the validators, and then due to low synchrony constraint, they start creating multi-parent DAG. So basically, when these 2 validators created a block, received the first block, they started creating their own blocks. And the interesting part is here. When these 2 validators issued new blocks, this one received them almost simultaneously. And the nice thing is that, let me show you an example in logs. Let me show you an example in logs. Yeah, this one. So as you can see,
You might want to, can you increase the font size on that logs?
Yeah, sure. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, for example, this part, this one, as you can see, in pretty much same time, node was computing post-state hash. Post-state hash means so each block, just short recap, to compute block is represented by its post-state hash. Post-state hash is the hash of a R space, which fully represents the state at the end of the block. So each block introduces some change. It has some start, it has some end. Start is the merge state for its parents. So basically these are parents of this block, and merge state of these two blocks is pre-state hash. Sorry. Yes, so I'm sorry. And here we can see that node is computing post-state hash for three different. So actually, these are three different blocks. Two of them have same pre-state hash, which means they have same parents, same merged parents, and one of them is another pre-state hash. So might be this is a block that is created by the validator itself. So this is a nice thing that we achieved recently. All these three computations are happening concurrently. Does this make sense to you folks?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the graph shows a kind of braiding characteristic that is a result of the synchrony constraint. And you'll basically get different weaves depending upon the synchrony constraints that you allow. So it's a very interesting graph in the way that you get these braids that correspond to synchrony constraints.
Yeah, I'm not sure what do you mean by braids?
Well, think of the arrows as literal strands.
Strands. I have to Google translate that. What's strands?
Thread.
Strands, yeah.
Thread or string or
thread. I see. Okay.
So literally, you're getting a certain kind of weaving pattern that is a result of the synchrony constraints.
Well, yeah, sure. So there is some kind of tempo in a DAG.
Yeah, but there's the valency with respect to the nodes is created by the synchrony constraints. What you have to have in terms of valency is determined by the synchrony constraint. You're not allowed to propose unless you've seen a certain amount of stake, which is going to correspond to incoming.
Yeah. Yes, and actually, so when we first introduced this synchrony constraint, it should have been solved the problem, but it did not. We didn't see like this, and it looks like there were different issues that we successfully resolved. And now I hope that this multi-parent structure should be quite stable.
Yep. At least that's what the data is initially telling us. We're going to have to do a lot more testing, but yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for taking.
Yeah, I want to ask Nutzipper, could you? I'm not sure if you were or were not monitoring the CPU usage with this unshackled runtime manager versus before. Do we see any substantial improvement in CPU usage or something? Or
well, this stuff has been run all three nodes on my workstation, so it would be burning anyway. But for sure, if we, for example, run 64 nodes and each has 64 CPUs, this means that when 63 peers create a block and send, a recipient node will be burning because it will replay all these blocks in parallel. And the next step that we have to improve is how to merge these 63 blocks into a pre-state hash so it can serve as a state, as a starting point for a block. Now it's slow because we have to replay and execute all the rolling code. But we are moving towards merging like already computed states for these 63 blocks. and this should be fast. But with this runtime manager removing this lock, we can say that it should scale with the number of blocks incoming. So it won't process just one block at a time.
Yep. Exactly. Thank you so much. We're over the hour, so I just want to run through just a few more things. So the board met yesterday. It was a special meeting, but we were able to adopt the recommendations from the nominating committee for the board member ballots, and that will be published in the usual place. Ian, did you want to say anything else about that?
Already published the draft minutes of that board meeting in the GitHub.
Awesome. So there we go. So the board basically just followed precisely the nominating committee's recommendations. So feel free to look those over, and I assume that the candidates will start campaigning since we have a very short period of time before the AGM. Anything else I need to cover here? I know we have several items that we want to cover in the closed door session, but I think that's it.
I could show the voting interface very quickly.
Go for it.
Very cool. Let me
oh, yes.
Reload this to accessing my local machine through a pipe here, robot.net 8181 is where we're testing this. And the first thing it does is it asks to connect my MetaMask, which I didn't ask because I already did. Sign in. It's it shows me an icon, a thing here that of the account that I'm logged into, which I should recognize. It's from my MetaMask. Actually, Dan implemented this show me next so that if people want to be led through the interface, they can go through it one thing at a time, or they can just, once they sign in, it loads from the blockchain, from RChain, the ballot. And if we look at, here's Dan's try Rolang, and if we do a get of that Rolang ID, that's on the page here, we can see we have a yes address and no address, a description and an abstain address, and you vote by sending dust to each of these addresses to select that vote. So you don't need any interface except a wallet, or you can use this nice interface. And then as you make the choices here, it fills in the Rolang program below to what addresses to send dust to. And then you sign and submit. And then MetaMask shows you the thing it's going to execute, in essence what you're going to vote for, and then you sign it. And I don't know, I got this signed twice there. Check your result, and then I'll get success here shortly.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jim. So actually, your presentation reminded me of something that's actually very important. Evan Jensen sent me an email this morning indicating that the U.S. Postal Service has filed for a patent application for a blockchain voting app. So this is something that we really want to get in front of. It's not reasonable to have intellectual property protection. There are many, many, many blockchain-based voting applications. There were several on Ethereum. There were others on other platforms. We have our own. It's not okay for there to be, patent protection on something like this, especially because the post office hasn't built anything. At the same time, it may also be an opportunity for us because we have a very transparent voting application that has lots and lots of features that maybe the post office hasn't thought about, or they might want to think about. So we ought to connect with them in this regard. So if anyone knows how to make contact with the USPS and with the patent office, I've never engaged with the patent office about showing that, in fact, we hold prior art and we've made it public domain. So that they cannot and shouldn't issue a patent. But we also want to contact the patent filers at the USPS and see what, how we might be able to support their aims and goals.
That's an interesting move for USPS to do at this point in time, given it almost sounds like they're blocking future.
We're gonna screw up the mails so that.
Yeah, I mean,
so they
now
have to use
that we have done that, let's make sure that there's no other technology alternative that can.
That's right. We're going to screw up the mail, so you have to use our patented voting application.
Yeah, that's completely insane.
And it enables particular parties to vote twice.
Anyway, it seems like a place where we might want to engage and make sure that they, that the prior art is well taken into account by the U.S. Patent Office. So, and we also ought to contact the USPS and see what their real aims and goals are, and if they are in alignment with ours, if we can support them. All right, with that, let's thank you for all the engagement, and looking forward to seeing many of you in Discord and on Friday. Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everybody.